What's up? Jeff from RetroArcadeGaming.com, that's all one word, back with another edition of Battle of the Ports. In this series, we look at a specific classic arcade game and see how well or poorly it's been ported to various console and computer systems over the years. Up this week is Elevator Action, released by Taito in 1983. The gameplay, fairly simple. You're a spy, codenamed Otto, who must infiltrate a 30-story building through the roof, collect all of the secret documents or files, and escape to the car waiting in the basement. The secret document locations are marked with red doors, and if you reach the basement without reaching or collecting all of the documents, you're magically whisked back to the highest level containing a document. To be honest, I kind of have a love-hate relationship with Elevator Action. I owned a dedicated cabinet for about 5 years before I decided to part ways with it. The gameplay is fun in short spans, but it suffers from a lack of level variety and a lack of musical variety. It's the same stuff over and over, basically. There's not a whole lot of variation to it. When you clear a level, you start a new level, pretty much the same as the old level, with slightly more aggressive enemies. The music plays in a loop. There's no variety. The only real change comes if you take too long to clear a level. There's kind of a hurry-up sound that plays, and then the enemies get much more aggressive. I consider this to be one of the great classic arcade games, but for me, it really suffers from a lack of replay value. Add to the fact that during the time I owned it, no one really ever jumped up and down or got real excited when they saw an Elevator Action in my collection. It's just one of those games that people see and they're like, that's cool. With that being said, here's an uninterrupted look at the arcade version of Elevator Action via MAME. So we'll start our look at Elevator Action ports with the port for the Sega SG-1000, which was released by Sega in 1985. For those unfamiliar with the SG-1000, it was released primarily in Japan, 1983. But also saw some relevance in Australia, Spain, Italy, a few other places. It was Sega's first venture into the home console market, but was unfortunately released the same day as the Nintendo Family Computer, or Famicom, which obviously had a much better slate of launch games and overall much better success. This really isn't a bad port, and to be honest, the arcade version of Elevator Action wasn't exactly groundbreaking in graphics or sound. There's no zip line on this one. You simply walk into the elevator. It looks like Elevator Action, with a somewhat unique color palette. Uh, the enemies kind of remind me that they got a little bit of a like Charlie Brown look to them. That's the first thing I thought of when I saw them. They somehow look like Charlie Brown to me. I don't know, from the old Peanuts cartoon. But overall, it plays as you would expect it to. The sounds are actually a pleasant surprise and aren't half bad. They recreate those of the arcade version fairly well. So go ahead and take a look and listen at elevator action on the Sega SG-1000. So up next, we're going to take a look at the MSX port, the Microsoft MSX port, released by Nidecom in 1985. Again, much like the SG-1000 port, this is not a bad port considering the hardware it was designed for. We've got the zip line is back. The color palette is a little more spot on than that of the SG-1000, but not perfect. The enemies are a little better defined than that of the SG-1000. Background music fairly accurately replicates that of the original, but it is pretty thin. The gameplay is just a bit sluggish. It's slow, and the controls seem to lag just a little bit. But it's not bad. It looks like elevator action, plays like elevator action. It's a little bit slow, but overall it's not too bad. So here's your look at the MSX port of elevator action. From there, we'll jump into the NES port, the Nintendo Entertainment System port, released by Taito in 1985. This one looks pretty good. Looks like the arcade game pretty much. Sounds like the arcade game pretty much. It plays like the arcade game pretty much. The colors are a little bit different. Pace of the game is maybe just a tad bit slower than that of the arcade version. But it's not overly distracting. This is not bad. As you can see when you jump, it's just a little bit slow. The main issue I have with this is with it's not really with the control scheme more or less than it is with trying to open doors and go down escalators. There's this magic spot you gotta be in order to go down an escalator, up an escalator, or open a door. And it can be pretty tricky to find that exact spot. If you're just a little bit off, it doesn't work. It's kind of becomes an exercise in frustration at some point. Trying to figure out where that exactly to stand to get the expected result. It's kind of an issue with the arcade game itself. It just seems to be a bit magnified in this version or port of it. But overall, this is a pretty good port and fun to play, and enjoy your look at it. Up next, we're going to take a look at 3 computer ports, all released by Quicksilva, not Quicksilver, Quicksilva, in 1987. I can't help but say that name and not think of salt and pepper, not pepper, salt and pepper. Anyway, it's Quicksilva, and the first port we're going to look at is for the Amstrad Color PC. And I'm not sure if sound effects were hard for Quicksilva, or they just didn't care because there aren't any in this game. Just the music track. Not anywhere close to the original. No gunfire sounds, no door sounds, no document recovery sounds, just the music. For what it's worth, I mean, it is kind of a catchy tune, I guess. But there's no sound effects in this. Just some cool kind of music. The game seems to play a little bit fast. The characters don't look kind of like... I have a cartoon reference thing going on today for some reason. They look like Beetle Bailey. They don't really look anything like the arcade counterparts. There's no zip line at the start. You're just in the elevator action. There's not a whole lot of... There is a pretty cool splatter effect when you get killed. Not a whole lot of original faithfulness to the original in this one. But what the heck, let's listen to the catchy soundtrack for a bit. So from the Amstrad, let's jump to the Sinclair ZX Spectrum port. Again, this was a Quicksilva release. And it'll take me a minute to get this one configured properly. Get my controller configured. So our spy here makes a pretty impressive entrance in this one, as he repels from a helicopter. Apparently, we don't need a damn zip line in this one. We got a helicopter. It's got the kind of same unique background music as the Amstrad port, but it does have some basic sound effects, rather crude, but they're there. Graphically, I mean, it's looks okay. It's better than some of the games we've looked at for the Spectrum. There's your guy, kind of goes into this goofy crouch mode. It's kind of like he's down on his hands and knees. The elevators move kind of fast, kind of slow. I don't know. This is okay to play. I guess we'll make our cartoon reference on this one. The enemies kind of look like McGruff the Crime Dog. I don't know. This is okay to play. It's not terrible by any means. It's not real faithful to the original. But, you know, you can obviously tell you're playing out. So, we'll give it points for that. For the ZX Spectrum, it's not bad. So, you know, if you didn't enjoy the sound on the last version we played, you might want to turn it down, because we're getting ready to listen to the sound effects on this one. So, have a look and listen at elevator action on the ZX Spectrum. The last of the Quicksilver ports is their release for the Commodore 64. So give me a second while this one loads up, and I'll be with you in a minute. So we get to cue the same non-original music as the last two versions, and saying the tune is catchy, as in the last two ports, is probably about the only good thing I can say about this port. The graphics look like they were designed for the Atari 2600. They're blocky, pixelated, just awful. The game is riddled with bugs. Bullets magically appear and disappear. Enemies float between floors. Bullets pass through enemies. I mean, the list just goes on. The bullets look like tennis balls, and there's no red doors. You know, who needs them? We'll just make the damn doors blank instead. You know, none of the Quicksilver ports are outstanding, but the Commodore 64 port is clearly the worst in the lot. So have a look for yourself. The Commodore 64 port of Elevator Action. The Nintendo Game Boy port was released by Taito in 1991. The original music is back, and it looks like Elevator Action with a few minor changes in gameplay. Most noticeably, there are now 2 sets of doors that can be entered. There are doors marked with an exclamation point, which contain the secret documents, and doors marked with a question mark contain what I guess we'll call power-ups. In the form of different weapons, shotgun that clears more than one enemy, machine gun that fires bullets faster, grenades, a few other goodies. There's a heart health system, so being hit by one bullet won't necessarily kill you. You won't lose hearts until you've depleted all of your hearts in your meter there. There's also a kind of a counter at the top that indicates how many secret documents remain. This is kind of fun to play. Not great, but not terrible either. It feels like you're playing Elevator Action. So here's a look at the gameplay, and more specifically, the gameplay changes. Alright, so just for kicks, we're going to take a look at the Game Boy Color version, which is entitled Elevator Action EX, which was released by Altron in 2000. It strays a bit too far from the original to be considered a port. It's got many of the gameplay elements of the Game Boy version, but it also includes selectable characters for whatever reason, cutscenes, some random guard dogs, and levels that are actually somewhat unique. So we're just going to take a look at it. It's obviously not a port of the original. It's an update to the original, and we're just going to take a look at it because it's my channel, and we'll look at it whatever the hell I feel like looking at. And I wanted to take a look at this one. So, it's a fun little game for the Game Boy Color. next, for the Game Boy Advance, a title called Elevator Action Old and New, which was released by MediaKite in 2003. This one only saw a release in Japan, so we didn't get it over here in the US. And we're just going to focus on the old part. But the new portion plays pretty similar to the title we just looked at, the Elevator Action EX title for the Game Boy Color. And the new version does include a cool link mode where two players can play simultaneously, kind of race through the levels. It's pretty cool. But the old portion actually appears to be almost identical in looks to the original arcade, but the sounds are a bit crappy, I guess is the word I'm looking for. The sounds aren't real close to the original. Not a big fan of them. Considering how good it looks, I wish it sounded as close to the original as it looked to the original, but it's not a bad take, and it's fun to play if you're looking for a replication of the arcade port itself. Have a look. Finally, we're going to take a look at elevator action from the Taito. One of these days I'll learn how it's actually supposed to be pronounced. From the Taito Legends compilation, which was released by Sega in 2005. It was available on the Xbox, the PlayStation 2, and Windows PCs. And we'll be looking at the PlayStation 2 version. This actually emulates the original arcade ROMs, so it's fairly as close to accurate as you're going to get. So give me a second to actually get to the game itself, and then I will let it play for about 30 seconds, and we'll call it good. So, and I just... Alright, so here is elevator action in the Taito Legends compilation on the PlayStation 2. said earlier, we don't have any rules, so we can look at pretty much whatever the hell we feel like. So let's take a look at two more titles. Up first, and another game for the Game Boy Color that offers similar gameplay to Elevator Action. It's probably similar because it was developed by the same company, Altron, that made the Elevator EX title for the same platform. But this is Dexter's Robot Rampage, which uses the Elevator Action formula and adds the same enhancements as the EX version. So you're basically playing Elevator Action EX, but Otto has been replaced by Dexter from the Dexter's Lab cartoon on the Cartoon Network, and the enemies have been replaced by robots. There's really nothing to compare here. It's not a port, but it's one in a long list of games that have based their gameplay theme on that of the original Elevator Action arcade. So here is Dexter's Lab Robot Rampage on the Game Boy Color. Very similar to the Game Boy Color title Elevator Action EX with the character swaps. So enjoy. Last, but certainly not least, the Atari 2600 prototype, which CGE brought to the Classic Gaming Expo in 2000. 2001, sorry about that. It's pretty raw. There's no music or sound effects, and the game really has numerous glitches. It's unfinished. It's pretty raw. You can jump in the air and basically hang there as long as you want to. You can crouch and slide around in the crouched position without standing up. There aren't any lights. Bullets appear out of nowhere. And there's lots of glitches to it. It is, however, in my opinion, an interesting look at a game that was in development when the great video game crash happened, only to resurface some 18 years later, still in unfinished form, still in development form, and really, for a 2600 title, if this thing would have been completed, some of the bugs ironed out, it actually wasn't half bad. It looks fairly decent. it just wasn't finished, and it's a glimpse at what may have been. But I'll let you look at it for a few minutes, just for the fun of it. Um, and we'll do a little flying around or whatever. But enjoy the promise of what would have been elevator action on the Atari 2600. So that's it. That's our look at elevator action ports and a few bonus titles that really aren't ports, uh, but based on elevator action. Clearly the Legends compilation available for the PlayStation 2, Xbox, and Windows is the class of the field. It's emulated. It's as good as it's gonna get. For a non-emulated port, even considering the frustrating controls, I'll give a nod to the NES port just for being the only one to actually make me feel like I was playing the arcade version of elevator action. Um, if you're not a huge fan of elevator action because of the repetitive nature of the game, the lack of variety, give one of the Game Boy Color games a chance. The EX, Elevator Action EX, the Dexter's Robot Rampage. Give those a try, as they mix the gameplay up just enough to make it feel kind of fresh. The same could be said for the old and new port for the Game Boy Advance. I'll just say that for the computer ports, I'm not a real big fan of any of the Quicksilva ports, nor their name. So take that for what it's worth. With that, we're done. I'm done with this episode. I was kind of on the sick wagon this week, so hopefully the next episode comes out a little quicker. But until then, we'll see you later. Happy gaming. Peace.